I want to address the issue of the hostages because there was reporting on Monday that Israel gave Hamas a proposal through Qatari and Egyptian mediators that would pause the fighting for 2 months in exchange for the release of all the remaining hostages. This morning, it was reported that the two sides have agreed in principle that the exchange of Israeli hostages and Palestinian prisoners could occur over a month-long pause in fighting, but there's been no plan set in motion because Hamas has made clear it's holding out for a full ceasefire, and this seems to have been the sticking point over weeks of negotiations. So, is there a way to bridge the gap between Israel and Hamas on these negotiations? And do you think that a proposal should include a full ceasefire or some sort of pathway to one?
Look, I certainly believe that if you can get all the hostages out at this point, you should do that. Now, the question of a ceasefire, the Israelis also proposed in what you're describing that the six leaders, the six military leaders of Hamas, meaning Yahya Sinwar, his brother, Marwan Issa, that these people should go into exile. Hamas rejected that, and the Israelis rejected the idea of ending the war. I think the issue here is maybe a need for reframing it. I would like to see us and the Israelis put a premium on the idea of demilitarizing Gaza so that it cannot be remilitarized. In a context where you demilitarize Gaza, and the Israelis are clearly in the process of doing that, it seems to me that a ceasefire becomes more thinkable because a demilitarization with an international mechanism to ensure that material going into Gaza cannot be diverted, cannot be misused. You have monitoring it throughout its journey within Gaza to its endpoint. That will make it, I think, increasingly difficult for Hamas to resume control. If you also tie the reconstruction to this guaranteed demilitarization, and you make it clear that if Hamas is control, you're simply not going to get donors to invest because of the concern that Hamas will do this once again, and they're not going to invest if that's all going to be blown up. So I think if we reframe the issue to focus on demilitarizing and ensuring reconstruction, massive reconstruction for guaranteed demilitarization and no remilitarization, I think the idea of a ceasefire becomes more acceptable. I mean, earlier, I have to say, my concern had been if Hamas is able to regain control, it will reconstitute itself. We know from all the resources they invested in their tunnels and their military industrial base, which are huge, at least 25,000 tons of cement is just one example for the tunnels. All of that could have been used above ground, but they didn't use any of it for above ground. They used it, in fact, for their mission, which is basically to continue to fight a war against Israel. So having them reconstitute themselves is a prescription for seeing this happen again, even if it takes some time for that to happen again. But if demilitarization becomes the objective, and if it's tied to reconstruction and investment for guaranteed demilitarization, and also Hamas not being in control, then I think you can begin to look to a pathway to a very different future for Gaza, and frankly, a different pathway for Israelis and Palestinians.